Welcome to another episode of Loan with Jen. So you might be listening to us on a platform, you might be watching us on YouTube, but today we've got a really special and for you. I have an expert on credit. I want to just tell you how I know Louisa. So Louisa and I have known each other for several years in the professional space, and she is just a rock star with credit. So she has been helping people restore their credit with a credit restoration company. You're with Freedom Path for many, many. You're a founding member of Freedom Path. Is that correct, Louisa?
I just was told that I'm a founding member.
Oh, well, that's great. Well, you have a wealth of knowledge, and she has agreed to be here with me today. And I want the listeners to walk away, listeners or watchers, that they walk away from this. We're probably going to go for about 20 minutes, but I just learned a ton about credit. Whether you have good credit, excellent credit, medium credit, you are going to learn this session from the mind of this master that we have here. So Louisa, thank you so much for being here and spending time with us today.
My goodness, what can I say? I just adore you, and I just think you bring a lot of value to the market, and I'm just glad I'm back in the field. As you know, I was in this world working and helping clients for about 8 years, and then I took a 1-year hiatus, and the demand and the misinformation out there is so bad, I just could not stay away, and I'm back, but I'm back and ventured and partnered with an incredible company.
So yeah, no, that's amazing. And so let's actually, the first thing I want to hit, then you mentioned it, actually, you stole my thunder, is misinformation. Let's talk about that for a minute. So the biggest myth that I hear on a daily basis is, I don't want you to pull my credit because it's going to take a nosedive, which is not true. So tell us what you know about that.
You are correct. When we do a hard pull on a customer's credit, it's a hard pull that in the industry autocorrects itself in about 2 or 3 weeks, and it may be a down 12 points or less. And in the scope of what we're trying to educate and help the client with is actually, if you have a lot of collections and you have late payments and maybe a couple of charge-offs, or you've had a foreclosure, those are bigger ticket items that I can guarantee you are dragging your score a lot further down the score pad than just having someone in a lender or in a capacity like ours to pull your credit. Do not panic. What hurts people is if you shop around after the first lender told you no, you're not qualified. They all use the same system. So to go to 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 others is what will hurt you.
Well, isn't it though, Louisa, in a 30-day period, don't all mortgage inquiries count as one though, right?
Yes, you can have 2 or 3 in a 30-day period. It would count as one. It's when a client decides 3 months down the road, I'm hitting 3 or 4 or 5 or 7 in a 3-month period. Don't do that. Please don't do that. That does hurt your score.
Well, so we tell people, hey, do in the first 30-day period, do kind of your investigative work. Let many lenders 2, 3, 4, 5. It's the same hard pull. But what I think when people don't do that, I tell people, even if you're a year out, let us tell you what to keep, start, and stop doing. And then we can also, for some very more complicated people that have a lot on their credit, that's where I say, hey, go to a credit restoration company like Freedom Path, get professional help. I mean, there's certain things that, let's face it, they could do by just paying their credit card down. It's a simple fix. But when you get to this complicated stuff, that's what we're going to really address today with Louisa's expertise. So my burning question, this is what I want to ask you first. I love to keep educating myself on credit. What is the hardest thing, Louisa, to remove off your credit?
A late payment. In fact, I tell people I could care less if you have 13 collections on your reports. Those are easier to negotiate and pay down. Even if it's in a collection, if you want to permanently remove it through credit restoration, which repair does not do. And the late payment can bring someone's score anywhere from 90 to 110 points. And it is the hardest thing to remove from the credits. In fact, It's harder to remove a late payment than it is a bankruptcy that has been discharged and it's been 2 years from the discharge date.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
And is it because the creditors just, they're like, yeah, sorry, it's, late. Like they have no reprieve, no recourse. They have no desire to remove any of it.
Well, you know as well as I know, everything is based on the risk factor. What is your ability and what is the risk I'm putting in to lend you that money? And what is the risk involving in you paying me back?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a series of late payments on your reports, any lender, anybody who you're buying a car from, anybody who you need to finance through and get something based on credit is going to look at that and say, she's a high risk or he's a high risk person. So they're less likely to approve the loan unless you're looking at 30% interest on a credit card, for example. It's just very difficult to get beyond that. That's probably the biggest red flag that exists.
Okay, gotcha. So don't pay your stuff late if at all possible. Like you've got to really watch those late. And it goes late on the 31st day. Like I remember
that is what's supposed to happen. But a lot of times, a lot of companies, depending on who reports it, I tell people all the time, Jen, if you're like 30 days from closing and you all of a sudden a credit card date of expiration on a credit card you pay online changed and now you're reporting that late, get on the phone and beg and grovel and plead. I do not want to get you into my services because once we're into a heavy, hard dispute and once we're in that realm, it's going to take several months and you won't close. Mm-hmm. I'd rather not take your money. I'd rather have you do everything you can directly with the company that reported it. Then if all else fails, let's see what other options we have.
Okay. So hardest thing to remove are lates. Now let's talk about, let's go into what you mentioned. You mentioned collections and bankruptcies and stuff. So I definitely, the first thing I want to tell people from what I see from the mortgage side. And again, I do want to point out that the mortgage credit score that we pull, all lenders have to use the same algorithm. Aren't there 25, Louisa, models?
Yes, but either it's a FICO score or it's the system that you all use, which is very similar to the FICO score.
Yeah, and so our score, it really weighs a lot on delinquency. So actually the number of points taken away for collection and a late payment it's in the same bucket. But we see that a collection of $10, literally like a late payment or something small, can literally be the same number of point deduction as if it was like $5,000. Like it doesn't matter how much the collection is, it's the act of the delinquency. And that's what a lot of people don't understand.
Well, and the other thing that people don't understand, Jen, and you're absolutely right, a collection could cost somebody 40 points. But the problem with that collection is, most people that I spoke to in the past would say, well, that's an old collection, I don't have to pay it. Wait a minute. Maybe that's what a repair company is telling you, but if you really want to get it done correctly, let's look at the data. It was a loan that you originally sought out and asked for. There is money owed. What happens is if you can't pay it because you've lost a job or there's been a medical issue or a divorce or something like that, which usually starts to create these kinds of things, the debt is still owed. What happens is that if the debt was originally sold from, say, Macy's to a third-party lender, to a third-party collections agency, then that is negotiable debt. When they reach out and call you, we're not asking you to ignore them. We're asking you to negotiate that debt and get a receipt. Now, they might have paid 20 or 30 cents on the dollar on that collection, but they need to pay that off to permanently remove that item.
So that's what I want to ask you, because what people I think don't understand, and why would they, why would consumers ever understand or want to how this credit works? It is such a mystery, even to me I pull like 70 credit reports a month and still I'm like, huh? But it's the deletion. So paying the collection to zero and just reporting as paid. Yes, it's the right thing to do. Like you said, if you owed it, you owed it, right? But it only benefits your score if it's deleted from the record. So let's talk about that. So
yes,
some companies will say, no, we don't do that. What do you do
Well,
now?
let me just say that I have gotten clients in the last several years that had tried someone else. I'm not knocking everybody else, but I can tell you the difference between restoration and repair. Repair companies don't carry the same licenses that we do. So the bottom line is, if they tell you they can fix your credit in 30 days, if you pay them $2,000, that's illegal. Nothing disappears in 30 days. A proper legal dispute takes almost 60 per dispute period.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing you have to remember is the FTC is now coming down on all these people that are charging an exuberant amount of money. In fact, you can't even charge for credit restoration anymore. You have to align it with business services. And the advantage that we bring to the table is that we are not going to I'm just of the belief that I can't just help you remove that. I have to teach you where the problem started and why we're removing it and how to keep that off. So it's through education and other services that help our customers really thrive and really get to where they need to be when they're buying a home or anything with credit.
So let's table for a minute, because I do have a question later about, hey, what to look for on when you're looking for restoration. I'm going to table that just for a minute. So in the question of collections, because some people try to remove collections on their own before they get to someone like you. Like, let's say they just have one collection and they're calling and they're like, hey, I'll settle for 50 cents on the dollar. And will you give me a deletion letter? Will you delete it from the bureaus? And they're like, no, we won't do that.
That's okay. It's not the end of the world.
It is, because I need their.
Well, but here's the thing. When they'll say no the first time, keep trying. It's kind of like they're just waiting for you to give up and walk away from that if you want to do it yourself. But what you have to remember is, in a collection, let me give you two different examples. Say you go to the doctor and you have surgery, and their billing department is trying to bill you for a certain amount of money, and after a while they just give up, but they just send it back to their own internal collections division. That is not a debt that's been sold. That amount in full is owed, and it should be paid. If it was sold to a third-party outside collections agency that paid maybe 30 or 40 cents on the dollar, then you don't have a signed agreement with that outside external company, but legally you still owe the debt. It's just that in this case, it's negotiable. Right. But if you were to go to court for any reason and you ask this third-party collections agency to identify and prove that you signed a legal document binding you to that debt that they bought, they couldn't prove it. There's no document. You didn't agree to have that debt sold.
So if somebody wants to try to persuade whoever on the other end of the phone to say, hey, can I pay for deletion? Like, I'll pay you. Will you delete this from my credit?
What I usually tell people is, don't expect them to do the work about deleting it. But what I will say is, get a receipt. Once there's agreement on payment and you have a receipt that you've agreed to pay what you agreed on, that is going to pay. It's going to say paid as agreed, but that is still a removable item from your credit reports that you could continue to dispute and remove.
Yeah. Because that's the thing, is that paying it and showing on the credit report is paid does not improve the score. Because if you have, and what we see in the model of credit that we pull lenders, is that any delinquency, whether it's a late payment or a collection in the last
12 months,
100, you mentioned earlier 40, it's 100% in the recent past. 100 points. And so deleting that from the report can be a huge, as if it didn't even exist. Because like sometimes people are like, I didn't even get the memo. They haven't even sent me mail. Like, they have not tried to contact me. I have nothing. I've been at the same address forever. And how is this?
Let me describe. The credit bureaus are companies that are private and they are for profit. They're making money off the things that are reported on there, and they sell your personal information.
Yeah, they do.
So they do not communicate with one another. But until the Fair Credit Reporting Act of 1971 came into play, they did whatever they wanted with whomever they wanted at the time that they wanted. The Fair Credit Reporting Act now forces these private companies for profit known as credit bureaus — I don't even know why the word bureau is behind them — to make sure that what they are reporting is 100% accurate. Now, I will tell you, they are not responsible for making sure that what's reported on your credit is 100% accurate until they are questioned under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, which is what we utilize to put them on the spot.
The Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, they're not obligated. So they're kind of just let stuff float out there until you question them about it.
Exactly. So if your name is misspelled on a credit report tagged to something, if it's not spelled correctly, that's not 100% accurate, it must be removed. If the address is wrong, it must be removed. If the item on there is not 100% accurate, it is removable under the Fair Credit Reporting Act of 1971.
So y'all go through and really identify what's what. Okay.
We even give our clients an education on the platform of what and where they can see the information and where's the law attached to it. You know, we just believe that if you educate your consumer and you give them the power of that education, that they're not only going to walk in somewhere and be bulletproof, but when these companies start calling them and threatening, which many of them do, and collections threaten you, they can't threaten you. If they threaten you, they're violating the law.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that can be done. But I mean, I'm not just going to give you the fish. I want to teach you how to fish through the process so that if ever you came up to a situation where that happened again, you would know how to get out of it yourself.
Yeah. So that's,
and you know me, I screen people. So if you send me people that say one collection, I'm going to work with them and probably never put them in my system and get them as a customer. I'll work with them and show them where they can find the information to do it themselves. Now, if you send me somebody with 40 some odd things on their reports, yes, it just depends on the individual, whether they want to take the time to dispute it themselves. But the other thing is things don't happen overnight. You know, it takes, I say when somebody approaches me with several really big dings on their credit reports, it doesn't matter if it's collections or late payments, it's not going to happen in less than 6 or 12 months, or maybe in some instances, 24 months. So they need to have the wherewithal to think ahead once they are identified with what's on their reports as to how long it's going to take. And there's never any guarantees. Every case is individual, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you know, that's why I encourage people, if you even think you're a year away from buying a house, go ahead and talk to someone like me, find out what it's going to take, where you are. Let us talk to you about what to keep, start, and stop doing, and get you help if you need it. If you're one of those more complicated, you know, things, like you said, like you've got several things, like more than several, like you've got a lot of stuff going on, because there's people that have medical events, they have things that, you know, COVID, they have things that kept them from being able to pay things on time. And there's errors. I mean, there's
and you know, Jen, I can tell you, having dealt with as many clients as I have, nobody gets up in the morning and says, you know what, I think I'm gonna do everything in my power to ruin my own credit.
Yeah,
you don't do it on purpose. Things like a medical issue, a major medical issue, can really affect someone. Someone loses a job, somebody gets divorced. Sometimes it's 2 out of the 3 things. You know, you never know. You just have to meet people where they are in life. I tell people all the time when they call me, there's 2 things I can guarantee you cannot get your way out, cheat your way out of, and that's death and paying taxes.
That's right.
We can help you fix your credit. We can help restore anything as long as you're, you know, a player in the game to be able to engage in what we're suggesting you do. And the platform that we tell you and to utilize is amazing. Really, truly amazing.
I actually have a question. I think, and I want to ask you if this is true, but the 2 things that credit restoration companies really cannot help people with, is it true that student loans being in collection, like in bad standing, or OAG, the Office of the Attorney General?
That's not correct. Restoration companies can help delete those items.
Okay, gotcha. Because I have seen the biggest source of error that I see, according to what the clients tell me, right? So I just hear one side, but OAG will report them late, and like we're talking 40 times 30 days late or whatever. And they're like, how can that be? It's been taken from my check. And, I hear all kinds of different things, but I had heard from someone who tried to call that OAG says, no, we can't, we won't change anything. And I'm like, oh my God.
Let me just say this. If it's a negative or derogatory item on that credit report, it is disputable and removable under the Fair Credit Reporting Act of 1971.
So in that case,
repair companies don't normally have the same jurisdiction and authorization we do. We are like the beast in the market. And you know me, you've worked with me for years.
Yeah, you are a beast.
I mean, I don't sugarcoat it. I'm never rude to a client, but I'm like, who told you that? And they'll say, well, my cousin's uncle suggested. I'm like, are they an expert in credit? Have they been working in the field? Do they know the laws? I know the laws. So please don't listen to your cousin's brother or your aunt's sister. Really get a hold. I don't charge anything for a consultation. I don't charge anything for a couple of questions. But, if you do have the problems that you really need to remove and the dings, and let me just kind of go over the list of the types of services that we help people with, because I think that's equally important. Yeah. I can't help you restore credit and remove something from your credit report if we're not helping you with learning how to budget. We also give you a we do credit monitoring. The system is amazing. You plug into the system what your credit score, what you want your credit score to be, and it'll tell you exactly what you need to do to get there.
Like I said,
we have rental reporting. A lot of people rent. They come to you and they go, well, I'm trying to buy my first home. We can go back through this program and report 12 months of on-time paid rental if you're with an apartment complex. It doesn't work if your brother's best friend is leasing you the home. It works when you're working with a legitimate company that has, for example, like an apartment complex. We do debt analysis and we manage your debt down and tell you exactly what you should be paying and not. We have calculators for loans, how to refinance, how to do all these things that help them get them into a situation which it helps them. We've got trainings, live podcasts, webinars, you name it. And we have credit experts. Kevin Carroll is the one that founded this company. I can tell you right now, he comes from the credit world. He's extremely knowledgeable. And when he found out that I was interested in partnering up with him, he's like, oh my gosh, I mean, this, what a better partnership.
What's the podcast? I'm writing this down. I'm going to go.
Well, we're going to have certain videos that I may be able to share with you. And it just talks about, experts talking about, we have an expert that talks to us and has some of the videos that we share with our audience on the platform when we're training our advisors. And, this gentleman used to work, not Kevin Carroll, but somebody who he has in his realm of his contacts, who worked for not only one of the credit bureaus, but also work in the FICO world, and so these are the kinds of people that we're bringing to the table. It's not your mom and pop operation that says, I'll pay me $3,000 and I'll remove that collection from your report. We do things really like beast mode, but legally.
So let me ask you this. If someone is thinking that they might be a candidate for credit restoration, what do they look for in a company? So just, neutralize for a second. I mean, I know you're the bump.com, but let's just say like, hey, what should you as a consumer, what actions, tactics should you take to make sure that you're doing the right investigation before you
ask a lot of questions? The first question is, what is your timeline? And can you guarantee me something? And if they guarantee you something, they're not working in your best interest. Anybody who tells you I can remove all those negative items for $2,000 on your credit reports in less than 30 days, that they're lying, run for the hills. You need to be asking how much the cost is. Companies that are charging a lot of money now just for credit restoration are going to get in trouble with the FTC. So you need to ask a lot of questions about who's behind the company. Show me the platform, give me examples. I mean, I can tell you that my customers, even though this is a relatively new company, the services that we put together under one umbrella are with companies that are not new to the market. They are seasoned top 100 companies that have been dominating their markets in their fields. We just put the platform together with all of these amazing services under one roof for our clients.
So people should Google as well, right? And just look into...
Well, go into the Better Business Bureau and see how many of these credit companies that do restoration actually have a whole bunch of different really, really bad reviews on the Better Business Bureau. There's companies being fined every day. There's companies being slapped down and They're being looked at by the FTC. They're being scolded. I mean, I don't know how you can recover from working for a company or that you've used a company that doesn't have your best interest at heart.
Yeah. So, no, thanks for that information. That's great. So we've covered a lot of ground. So we covered, collections, how to potentially remove them. Do you remove them? Do you pay them? Do you know kind of when you need help from a more professional, company when you've got many, many items, in the event of, like you said, like a divorce, a sickness, loss of a job. We talked about credit restoration and touched upon there's a difference between restoration and repair, and some things to look at and ask questions, lots of questions when you are looking for a company that's good for you. And by the way, in the show notes, in the description, I will put information to Louisa's company so that you can contact her if you think that she's a fit for what you are wanting. If you do want to get some rock star, it sounds like, services for credit restoration, especially with the downturn and the when I see the economies, things like this happen, more divorce, we see more errors, we see, people lose, in COVID, then we see that's the first thing that goes is credit. And so people need a helping hand for sure.
Oh, and the other important thing, Jennifer, is, I never want somebody to feel really, really bad about the fact that they have things on their credit that are negative. It happens to everybody, myself included. I'm not immune. There's no specific economic level that bad credit affects. The more money you make, the more you spend, right? And so I have doctors and lawyers, and I have people that are CEOs of large oil corporations that I've helped. It doesn't matter what walk of life you come from, but I will tell you one thing. Anybody you've ever sent me, or anybody who ever calls me first, I go through kind of a screening process, because I don't want to enroll somebody that may be able to do it themselves, or that I want to find out a little bit more. And I know my business inside and out. And I can tell you, when you've gone through 3 or 4 or 5 different companies in the last 4 years to try to restore credit or repair things on your credit, then you're not utilizing the right company, because those things should not be popping back up.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
I tell people all the time, I had a guy call me one day and he said, I paid somebody $5,000. And I went back 2 weeks later to the same place where I signed up, and that they no longer existed on that corner shop. Just pay attention to who you're talking to. I will screen people and give them advice all day long before they enroll into the wrong company.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground. I hope that the listeners or watchers here, depending on how you're streaming it in, or YouTube, whatever, that you just got some good tips about collections, disputing, accuracy, and what to search for in a credit restoration company when you're looking that might be the path that you're going to take. So, Louisa, thank you so much for your expertise today. I really, really appreciate it. We'll put lots of good information in the show notes, description about how to reach her. And we'll do another one of these soon. There's so many, credit is my favorite topic, because it's just, there's so many things that consumers really, really don't know. And so I like to try to make it easy for people to just have the right information and save them hours of research on Google. So I think we saved them hours of research just by this short.
And the only thing I can add to that is thank you again for inviting me. I love working with you. I love working with your clients, but we deal with personal credit. The individual needing our services must have their own social security number.
Oh yeah, that's important. Yeah.
In business, it's different. You can have an ITIN number or a tax number. In personal credit, it's what's attached to your own personal security, social security number.
Gotcha. Perfect. Yeah. Thanks for mentioning that. All right, my dear. Well, over and out. Thank you for listening to another episode of Loan with Jen, and we'll see you the next time. Bye.
Bye.